This is the Farmer's Guardian podcast. This is Chris Brayford, and I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Alex James, the bassist of Blur and self-acclaimed chairman of the Cheese Boat. How are we doing, sir?
Oh, it's so nice that well, I've had my bass playing hat on most of the past fortnight, so it's just very nice to be back on the farm, bemoaning the terrible cherry crop. Apricots are looking all right, actually. No, the market garden's in full bloom, and it's just so nice to be home.
Alex, could we just talk about the your first kind of foray into farming? Where did that initial maybe idea, that dream, where did it come from?
I don't know. It was an accident, really. My wife and I fell in love in the Cotswolds, and we were looking for a house. And I remember the minute we got here, we looked at loads, and it was just all horrible. And that just the minute we got here, which I remember, I had a really rubbish car at the time, and we pulled up outside the farmhouse, and the farmer clearly had a more rubbish car than we did, and we were like, okay, this is good. And then we we were both really bursting for the loo, and we were kind of shown to the loo, and we kind of like, and so we sort of huddled together in this little room. We were like, wow, this is brilliant. And then I just remember the minute I got here, feeling no inclination to leave, and it kind of still feels like that. Actually, I hate leaving. The more time I spend here, the more kind of ensconced, the more I just get completely absorbed in my crazy schemes, and I love it. I mean, the guy that we bought it off, we worked out we've been to the same school actually in Bournemouth, and it was the only house that we looked at that the owner clearly didn't want to sell. He actually cried when he gave us the keys. But he'd been a beef farmer, and 20 years ago, I mean, I know it's never easy for farming, but that was a particularly bad time. There'd been a massive foot and mouth outbreak, and there'd been BSE was like decimating stock, and every time, you used to think, a farmer on telly now, you think about Jeremy Clarkson laughing his head off. Farmer on telly in those days, he was crying because he'd had to kill all his cows. I mean, it was horrendous. So this poor guy was kind of crawling out on his knees, and the place was really in ruins. It's not a huge farm. It's 200 acres of kind of mainly grassland in the Cotswolds, so grazing really. We've tried doing wheat over the years, but we can't really plough any of the land now because we need it for parking cars on, so people could jump up and down to Rick Astley at the festival. So, and really we moved here at the point that Blur kind of, I didn't really split up, but we kind of stopped doing what we were doing. And fortunately, it wasn't really what I chose to happen, but I was still in my early 30s, so I kind of had enough energy to kind of try and do something else. And I wrote a column in the Independent about my kind of trends, my jump from kind of nocturnal city dwelling musician to early rising man of the countryside. And that was kind of that sort of gave me, I think that was kind of what gave me a voice. And 2 years in, 2 years to work out that we should be making cheese, because I've always really loved cheese, and a cheese maker was moving back to the area, and that kind of, I think at that point there was a kind of huge explosion in British cheese making. Dairy farmers who couldn't get a fair price for their milk diversified into cheese making. It had already started happening through the 80s. In Somerset with the Montgomerys and the Quicks, and even up in Lancashire, the Kirkhams were knocking out some incredible Lancashire cheese, and Stilton in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. There's some great stuff. And so cheese was something that was suddenly like Britain was doing really well. I mean, I guess, you know, even 20 years ago, Britain was still recovering from the effects of the Second World War and rationing. You know, it's hard to believe we ran out of food a generation ago. But bacon was rationed until my dad was in his 20s. It's incredible to think, really. But you know, it was really good timing. I think us moving here, literally 20 years ago, that was the sort of the dawn of Jamie Oliver and like great food programming on television. You know, I think shows like Bake Off and Celebrity MasterChef, even though I wouldn't want to go on them. It's sort of it has kind of engaged people in cooking, and and lockdown actually was a kind of 2-year dinner party, wasn't it? There was kind of nothing else to do, so while I saw Jeremy Clarkson on Monday, and he's he's a proper moaning farmer now, this catastrophic oat disaster. Like I mean, we had such a good cherry crop last year, and I invented this fantastic, and actually the honey worked. At long last, the honey came through, and I put the honey and the cherries together and mixed it with some grain spirit from another farm down the road. Got this incredible kind of cherry vodka, which tastes like cough medicine, but stronger than absinthe, like amazing kind of madness juice. And I'm great, we'll do that. And then this year, no cherries at all. I mean, so, I know it's hard, but I think we do now have a great British public who is interested in food a lot more than 20 years ago. I mean, not quite like in France, where they go home for lunch in France. I mean, we're not quite. They take their food that seriously. They're actually, everything shuts for 2 hours, and they will go home and have a couple of glasses of wine and make it count, which is wonderful. I think a French person goes into a supermarket and picks up a chicken. The difference between France and England: French person picks up a chicken, goes, "How nice is this chicken?" English person picks up a chicken, goes, "How much is this chicken?" We're still very price driven on food, but I think people are starting to understand that it's always like the first place we look to save money, isn't it? Buying food, but it's actually it's the cheapest form of luxury, eating well, and they're really good at that in France. Actually, everybody eats from the same menu. Postmen and bishops, all tucking into the foie gras. And that's the way it should be. And I think that's what makes Feastival work so well, is that food really is a universal pleasure. I mean, that's how I connect with my kids. Actually, is cooking for them. I've got 5 teenagers now, and that what they need is cooks and drivers. So at weekends, if I'm not driving them, I'm cooking for them. So I think it's been the last 20 years there's been a kind of renaissance for British food, and actually it's great that sort of so I was basically doing what Jeremy's doing, like, but on a very small budget 20 years ago, crap farming and kind of making a lot of mistakes, and but I think you just have to keep trying different things. Some things work and some things don't, but you just got to keep getting up early and plugging away. And I was lucky to have a voice. People kind of in a way, if you're in a band, kind of the hardest thing to make is another record. He's made another record, but musician makes cheese. That's kind of what everybody kind of wants to talk to you then. So I was able to sort of build. I mean, my granddad was a chef. I've always my first job was working in his kitchen. I've always been really passionate about food, so it kind of made sense when Jamie Oliver approached me 12 years ago, it must have been, about doing a food and music festival here on the farm, and I've never looked back, really. It's I don't think I've ever worked so hard either, but it's just filling this derelict farm that we bought on our honeymoon, just sort of filling it up with everything that I love the most. I've made a load of cheese, a load of children, and a load of tunes. And so, so just filling the farm up with food, music, and family stuff. It kind of it doesn't feel like work. But then I look back and think, well, I've had 4 hours nights, 4 hours sleep a night for I don't know how long, you know. But you know, I love doing it.
What's it like having Jeremy Clarkson as a neighbour?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Well, yeah. You know, he's at heart he's a great journalist, I think, and he really cares. And yeah, again, he works really hard, and I think you know what, and he's I think he's probably done more for British farming than anyone except Caleb. No, no. I mean, he's he's given farmers a voice, and he's so determined. And you know, he doesn't give up. But you know, it's I mean, it's you know, in terms of sort of running a food and music festival, you know, we've got the Dalesford Farm Shop literally opened the week that actually opened the week that we moved here. I remember my dad coming. We sort of got here and everybody went out exploring, and my dad came home saying, I found a farm shop. I found a farm. I was like, yeah. He said, no, this is an amazing farm shop. Because, you know, farm shops back then, it was a load of kind of cling wrapped chunks of kind of stuff that you didn't really even want to pick up. But, you know, Dalesford was a paradigm shift in making farm shops glamorous. I mean, it's, the Bamfords who are the masterminds behind that. It was a kind of philanthropic mission, really, to kind of to encourage people to eat healthily, and you know, they've poured tens of millions of pounds into the local economy on world-beating agricultural standards. You know, I mean, in Richard Smith, there, the guy who runs all the farms, you know, he's a kind of saintly figure, so knowledgeable, and you know, it's all about kind of just looking after the land and doing a really good job, and the fact that they're here has attracted lots of others, because you can source really good ingredients. That's attracted kind of great sort of food producer, you know, food processors. You know, there's like smokeries and breweries, and you know, it's a little gold mine here in the Cotswolds of, you know, kind of there's a real food, you know, food tourism's become a thing. And I keep thinking, you know, the Dalesford bubble's surely going to burst, but it doesn't. Every time I go back to the farm shop, they've built on another wing, doing, you know, now they're doing cut flowers, and it's Jez Taylor who runs the market garden there, is another absolute genius. And you know, he's given us loads of great advice over the years, and you know, but I see that I think this can't go on. But you know, suddenly now there's the diddly squat bubble as well, and you know, that's a sort of completely different story. But you know, we're right in the middle of it, and you know, so it's just what I mean. It kind of needed to happen. We've sort of re-engaged with we've found our taste buds as a nation over the past 20 years. And I think I think it's really hard to be in an indie band. You know, Blur were an indie band. You know, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s when we started. You know, bands. You know, you play in your garage, and if you're any good, you know, you get a record deal, and you can make a decent living out of it. But you know, I don't think you can do that anymore. But if you can make kind of pickled onions, like a kind of sexy pickled onions in your garage, you know, the spirit of kind of indie kind of lives on in pickled onions now. I don't think you can, you know, there's definitely kind of little niches there, because you know, I think that people are there's an appetite for kind of interesting food. So you know, yeah, 20 years ago, yeah, it was all foot and mouth and BSE. Now it's all sexy pickled onions. You know, there's opportunities.
There's many challenges in farming, but there's probably none as challenging as organising the Big Feastival. Could you tell us a bit about that,
Yeah,
Alan?
I thought, you know what if I know I thought, like, what if it rains? You know, I spend my whole year organizing, you know, this party, and then it could rain. But you know, we're all betting on the weather, aren't we, as farmers? You know, that's just, I guess mine is just more, you know, sort of slightly more. It's a 3-day period where, you know, I really need it not to rain. But But no, I mean, we've always been really lucky with the weather. We're like cataclysmic thunderstorms one year, but it's fun. You know, actually, a bit of rain's quite good. You know, because when the sun comes out again, everyone's like, "Hallelujah!" You know, I think it's horrible if it's raining when you're putting up your tent. It's even worse when raining when you're taking down your tent. But like a bit of rain in the middle, that's actually really, you know, sunshine, rain, boo, and then the sun comes out again, and it's always like a euphoric feeling. But no, I mean, I love doing it. You know, we got a great lineup of bands this year. Really pleased. Rick Astley was like the big hit at Glastonbury. We've got Blossoms, Tom Grennan, who my kids love, #1 album earlier this year, Sigird and the Vaccine, and then like a whole bunch of chefs. We normally end up with about the same number of Mitchelin stars as London over the weekend. You know, I mean crazy. A lot of the chefs come back every year and kind of camp with their families, and then we've got like a kind of whole new cooking area, the smokery, which was like barbecue madness with the barbecue, like the barbecue guru Simon Stallard's coming up from Cornwall and DJ barbecue, and then comedy stage this year, that's new, and the Cheese Hub, which is like my double-decker disco, got crazy DJ lineup this year. Seb Fontaine and Tall Paul doing a syrup takeover on Friday, so bring a wig if you're coming on Friday. Who else we got? Jeremy Healy, Woody Cook, Stanton Warriors. Yeah, I mean it's 12 years of blood, sweat, and tears, really. But as I say, it doesn't feel like work. It's just filling the farm up with everything that I love the most, and then lighting the fuse and standing back for it all to explode. August Bank Holiday weekend.
So it's August the 25th to August the 27th.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, Kingham. So yeah, right in the heart of the Cotswolds. I mean, the Cotswolds is great. You know, it's very close to London. And it's actually quite close to, you know, it's like an hour from Birmingham, hour from London, hour from Bristol, 2 hours from the south coast. So it's kind of right in the middle of England, but the Industrial Revolution never really happened here. You know, it was a kind of always a kind of agrarian, economy. Great, you know, the grazing was really good here. It was the wool that was valuable. But there were no kind of mineral resources or big rivers or ports or settlements, and you know, it basically looks exactly the same as it did in 1782 when the Enclosures Act was passed and the hedges were laid. But you know, I've got maps of the parish going back that far, and like nothing's changed. So you know, we're very lucky it's somewhere that's kind of in the middle of bang in the middle of all these big cities, but you know, it's very dark at night and very quiet, and you know, still, you know, you can sort of you shut your eyes, you can kind of imagine dinosaurs. I can anyway, but I'm mad.
Brilliant stuff. My very last question, Alex, is could you just summarize why you are passionate about the industry, about farming? Why do you love being a part of it so much?
I think very lucky to be here now when people have never been more interested in food. But I just love being here. It's my family home, and yeah, I never. The more time I spend here, the less I want to leave. You know, I used to have to go on tour. Now I can't get the bands to come here. You know, I think no job's easy, but that, you know, and I've basically been skint. You know, I was doing all right with the band. I've basically been skint since I moved here. You know, every time Blur get back together, I think it's a swimming pool, but you know, it's always another septic tank. I wouldn't change it. You know, I wouldn't. I love it. I just love it. The plums are ripe, and that's my favourite. Warm plum in the sunshine. You know, it's Eden. It's Eden.
Thank you so much for your time, Alex.
Absolute pleasure. And let us know if you fancy coming. Love to see you here. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Good luck with the tour and the album. And I know it's doing fabulous work, and I love it myself. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Great talking to you, man. Excellent. Many thanks. Cheers. Nice one.